Welcome, everyone. My name is Ken DeSessa from Revelwood. I'm an account executive here. I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to join us on our webinar on automating bank reconciliations with BlackLine. Hey, I know that some of you may be here just out of general curiosity. Others may be closer to having an initiative in the area of automation of these bank recs or your monthly close process. Either way, one of the things I'm going to do when the webinar is complete, I'm going to shoot you out a meeting invite for maybe a 15-minute call. You know, whether you have an active project or not, it would be great to just connect for that short period of time. We'd love to get input from you, hear the types of things that you're doing. So you can expect that from me, Ken DeSessa, after the webinar. So I'd like to introduce Adam Riskin. He's going to be taking you through the webinar today, and we should be done on time. Adam, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Kenny. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Just a quick intro, a little bit about me. I am a former accountant that spent the last 20 years or so in the financial system space, managing systems like ERP systems and financial planning systems. So I've seen all the work that takes place in accounting and the tight deadlines, and I've seen the repetition of that work. And I'm happy to be sharing BlackLine with you today. It's a product that can make a big difference in the life of an accountant and the companies that they work for. Just a little bit about BlackLine. So BlackLine is a company that creates software for accountants. It's all that they do. Almost all their time and resources are spent on designing software to automate and simplify accounting processes. A lot of their employees are either former accountants or auditors, and it's really helped them to create a great product. The company's been around for a long time, but in a nutshell, they have a huge number of users, a huge customer base across the globe, and recognized as the best in the industry. So let's talk a bit about why accounting automation software is needed. So for many accounting teams, most tasks are done manually in Excel today. These are things like reconciling bank statements, balance sheet reconciliations, or creating accrual and amortization schedules. And Excel is a great tool that helps to complete these tasks. But even with all its great features, it still has limitations. You still have to manually key in amounts and make sure formulas don't break. You got to make sure your amounts always tie back to the general ledger. And maybe most importantly, with Excel, tasks can still take a very long time to complete. So for most organizations, we find continuing to complete accounting tasks manually in Excel, it just isn't sustainable. And why isn't it sustainable? Well, it really boils down to four things: time, risk, cost, and morale. The time your team dedicates to manual tasks, it becomes a bottleneck. It causes your month-end close to take longer and longer to complete. And it's risky to complete tasks manually in Excel because it's hard to prevent mistakes. And that can lead to inaccurate financial reports or forgetting to do key tasks. There's also a huge cost. Manual processes need people to do them, and FTEs are expensive. So if your company is growing or has an increase in workload, you have no choice but to hire and pay for more employees. Now, adding to all of this is the potential for low morale. Many people don't really like manual and repetitive tasks. It just kind of wears them down. So this is where BlackLine comes into play. BlackLine's built a well thought out platform that maximizes automation. It reduces the time needed to complete your accounting tasks. Here's a flow chart of a typical direct accounting tasks. Most people equate these direct tasks to sitting down with an Excel spreadsheet or ticking and tying line items or reviewing a document. But there's a ton of indirect activities that goes on as part of this whole process. Now, we may not think about the time spent on these indirect activities, but they quickly add up. So for example, writing and reading emails or searching for a document or attending status meetings. Accounting teams spend a lot of time on these types of activities. Now, the BlackLine solution, it minimizes both your direct and indirect time spent on them. We even have an activity analysis that helps you quantify how much direct and indirect time your team spends on these tasks today. And if you ever want to step through it, just let us know. We'd be happy to do it with you. So to sum it up, BlackLine increases your team's capacity to work on more value-add activities. It automates many of your existing tasks, reducing the time your team spends on them. And when that occurs, your team gains more capacity to work on other value-add activities. So in your current world, you may have a wish list of projects and initiatives, but don't have the time to do them. With BlackLine implemented, you'll gain all the time you need to take on those projects and initiatives. Now, BlackLine has a broad set of software modules, which are shown here on the slide. And with each module, your accounting tasks become more and more automated. Now, today's demonstration will just be on the transaction matching module, which is commonly used to automate bank reconciliations. But some of the other modules listed, they do things like automate balance sheet reconciliations, track month-end close tasks, and provide controls and approval processes around journal entries. And if you want to learn more about these other modules, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to walk you through them. We'll also be doing more webinars on them in the future. Okay, so let's jump to the transaction matching module. Now, when we're talking about transaction matching, we're talking about matching records from one data source to another. And again, the most common example is a bank reconciliation. And to help explain the transaction matching module, let's look at a sample bank rec. This is how most companies do it today in Excel. They take the general ledger and bank data, dump them out to an Excel file, put them side by side, and then match records one by one. So I got check number 1791 for $467,000 in my bank statement. Let me go find that on my GL. And when it's found, I either cross it off or I change it to a color. Now, this is how it's done in BlackLine. On a scheduled basis, your bank and GL transactions are imported into BlackLine. It runs the files through its matching engine to compare and match records from both files. Records that are successfully matched are put into the matches bucket. Records not successfully matched go into the exceptions bucket, where a user can research and manually match those records. It's really as simple as that. And the benefits are huge for your bank recs or any other matching reconciliations you do. All that time you spend manually matching in Excel, it goes away. The system does all the matching for you. And with the time savings, you'll have more time to research exceptions instead of putting all your efforts into just finding them. And the system can schedule and can complete these recs on a daily or weekly basis. So if an issue occurs in the middle of the month, like a deposit hitting the bank with an incorrect amount, you could address it on that day instead of waiting till month end. So let's take a look at an example in the software. Here's a video that shows how a bank rec is completed. This is a demonstration of the transaction matching module. I'll start off showing a bank reconciliation because it's something all accounting teams are familiar with. Here's the Excel data set I'll use for this demo and match within BlackLine. The left are bank transactions and the right are the general ledger transactions. Now, I'm only using a handful of transactions here because it's easier to follow in the demo. But the system can easily match thousands or even millions of records if that's what exists in your systems. Now, within these files, different types of matching scenarios exist. And I use these in the demonstration to give you a feel of how powerful BlackLine's matching capability is. Some of your ERP systems may have matching functionality, but rarely are they as robust as BlackLine's. So whatever match rate you're getting with your ERP system today, it's likely to significantly increase with BlackLine's capabilities. So let's jump into the software. The first thing I'll do is import the Excel file with the bank transactions and the Excel file with the GL transactions. Now, in a regular implementation, these are imported on a scheduled basis. Many customers reconcile their bank transactions daily, so the bank and GL files are automatically uploaded by the system each morning. But for this demo, I manually do it so you can see how it works. Now that the files are loaded, let's go ahead and take a look at them. This looks almost identical to the Excel file from before. The bank statement records are on the left and the general ledger transactions are on the right. Now, let's look at the different logic needed to match these records. I have some records that are a one record to one record match, some that's a one record to many records match, and some that are many records to a many records match. So that's the three different sets of rules the system uses to match these files properly. Now, I already created those rules in the system, so let's take a look at one of them now. This is the rule that matches one record from the bank statement against one record from the general ledger. It's set up so if both records have the same amount and a similar date, it will mark that record as a match. Now, there's a few things I want to stress about these matching rules. The first is this is the core feature that's going to save you a tremendous amount of time to complete your bank reconciliations or any other data files that you're matching. Because all the logic in your head that you use to match or reconcile your Excel files today is transferred into the system. And now that the system knows that logic, it can do the matching for you. So if you're spending hours or days on reconciliations and matching files in Excel, the system now can do it in seconds or minutes. Second is, these rules are super easy to maintain and update. You're seeing pick lists and checkboxes and radio buttons on the screen. So someone within your accounting team can absolutely manage these rules. You won't need any support from your IT department to do it. Okay, so I've shown you what it looks like under the hood. Now let's go ahead and have the system actually match these two files for us. This Run Now button triggers the system to match the files. It takes less than a minute for the system to do it. Now, equate this to how you may be doing this today in Excel. You're pulling up both Excel files, one on one screen and one on your other screen. You're using VLOOKUPs and XLOOKUPs formulas to try and match some of the records. You might be creating pivot tables and massaging the data to try and match many bank records to many general ledger records. Or maybe you're using your ERP system's matching tool, but it's not able to match all the records. So you still have to manually reconcile a significant amount. So whatever manual task you're doing, you're probably spending significant time doing it. So why keep spending days or weeks manually matching files when BlackLine can do it in minutes? Okay, so the system finished matching the records. Remember that all the records successfully matched go into the match bucket. They're there for research and audit purposes, but you don't have to spend a second working on them. The records that the system couldn't match go into the unmatched bucket. So let's take a look at both of these buckets. Let's start with what the matched bucket looks like. Here's the bucket of matched records. It's a full audit trail of each match including the rule that it used. So these records here were matched by the many-to-many rule. The total of the 3 bank transactions on the left is $2,000. The total of the 2 GL transactions on the right is also $2,000. So the system marks them as a match. This is a match made by the one-to-many rule. The bank statement had 1 American Express deposit for $25,000. The general ledger had 3 journal entries, also totaling $25,000. So the system marked it as a match. And all the other matches, those were made by the one record to one record match rule. So that's what the matched records look like. Now let's look at the records the system couldn't match. So here's the bucket of unmatched records. The left side are my bank transactions that couldn't be matched, and the right is the general ledger record that couldn't be matched. So looking at the screen, it seems like the Visa journal entry on February 16th was booked for the wrong amount. It probably should have been $6,500 because that's the amount that hit the bank. And the bank and the Amex fees, they probably need to get booked to the GL. So once those journal entries are posted into the ERP system, they'll import into BlackLine, and then they'll get matched with the remaining bank statement records. So that completes the demonstration of the transaction matching module. I'll jump back to the presentation now. Okay, so let's finish up the transaction matching module with reviewing its key benefits. The first one, which is the biggest one, is using its powerful matching logic to automate the entire reconciliation. The system does all that matching work for you. The audit trail is created for every match record, so an auditor can see which match rule was used and when the records were matched. You can reconcile files daily, allowing you to address issues the day they occur instead of waiting till month end. You have the standardized matching logic. So matching reconciliations are completed the same no matter which accountant is responsible for them. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that some very large companies use BlackLine's matching module. Domino's Pizza and SiriusXM are 2. They use it to match millions of credit card payments each month. Now, your company might not be as big, and that's okay, because the tool is used by both small and large organizations. But it should give you a feel of just how powerful this module is. Now, keep in mind that although this module is commonly used for bank reconciliations, it can automate any scenario where you're matching records from multiple files. Note all the other listed examples of how the transaction matching module can be used, and it could actually match up to 3 data sources. So you can use it to reconcile your general ledger to a payroll report, or purchase orders to inventory received, or even a 3-way match between your credit card statements, bank statements, and general ledger. So if you're spending significant time each month matching transaction in Excel, BlackLine can save you that time by doing the work for you. So I wanted to finish up showing some of BlackLine's existing clients. The software is used by both big and small companies across every industry, so you can see it's a fit for almost all companies. There's also case studies available on many of them, and we could provide those if you'd like. All right, and that concludes today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@revelwood.com.
And Adam, I'd like to just remind everyone, I don't think you mentioned earlier, that we have another webinar tomorrow on balance sheet reconciliations in BlackLine. So if you have not registered that and like to do so, just go to revelwood.com and find that webinar, and you can register and get all the information for it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenny. And then just one last quick reminder, as Kenny mentioned at the beginning, we will be reaching out asking for a quick 15-minute introduction call. We do hope you could accept that meeting and have that quick conversation with us. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.